Haha, we've all seen that viral clip where Moses from the Bible parts the Red Sea with a Beyblade. But have you seen them battle the President of the United States of America on a miniaturized model of the White House lawn? Or when they try to turn a child into Swiss cheese with Beyblade Hall of Guns? Or who could forget Beyblade Immaculate Conception?
Hi, local main character Zepp here, and I just have to say, Beyblade, am I right? The series turned 25 in 2024, and the fans of that series turned into the last group of Americans who will possibly ever buy a house. The series had ups, downs, and tornado battlers, but I swear the ups were really good. I think it's important to go back to the roots of this whole thing to see what makes this franchise really tick. While Metal Fight Beyblade is the most popular series in terms of unit sales, YouTube views, and social media trends, it's not where the series began. No matter what your insufferable friend Hukins Ryuga thinks.
2001 was the year the world changed. Just 8 days into the year, TV anime Bakuten Shoot Beyblade aired, finally bringing Takao Aoki's popular Koro comics manga of the same name to a brand new audience all across Japan. Beyblade had proven popular since the start of the manga, toy line, and video game installments in 1999, but this would ramp things up a bit. Just a little bit.
Looking back, this sent the whole world spinning and was probably the single largest cultural event in the world in 2001. Ignore everything else that happened in 2001.
Clearly, the series did pretty well. It kicked off a media franchise whose name is now synonymous, if not inseparable, with the concept of a spinning object. Reaper from Overwatch is a Beyblade, this 50s board game is a Beyblade, this religious tradition is Beyblade, any rotating object is a Beyblade. No competitor has ever come close to the top toy, so clearly this glorified toy commercial must have been good at advertising its main product. Right? Right? Come on, man, at least pretend that you buy that in stores now.
The question of, is Bakuten Shoot Beyblade an effective toy commercial, is an incredibly complex one that has an incredibly complex answer of, no, not really, but who am I to say that when it very clearly worked? If we're going to clear that up, we're going to have to talk about how Bakuten Shoot treats its Beyblades, a subject which is, yeah, you guessed it, smart guy, incredibly complex.
First things first, it's easier to understand the series under the context that it was created in, i.e. to ride the coattails of Pikachu and his amazing collectible friends. Yeah man, they just straight up admit to designing the main two characters after Red and whatever you call this guy. The genesis of the Beyblade franchise, Jiseidai Beigoma Battle Beyblade, was a monster collection RPG where you loaded up your critters into spinning tops. From magazines showing off an early version of the toys, we can tell that the creature collection aspect was going to be pushed even harder with a full V-Pet feature, something that we would only kinda see done in the 2002 line. That left collectible bit chips with a slew of creatures on their decals to be the compromise. But they also had to sell an incredibly customizable high-performance battling spin top. They tried to reconcile this with having random bit chip boosters and reportedly putting special game-altering rules on early bit chips, but this didn't last too long as bit collection was slowly phased out from the franchise. The exact opposite happens in the anime. While the anime may start with focusing on the actual tops themselves, kind of. After a certain point, they start to focus more and more on the giant monsters that come out of them and then smash into each other like action figures. But before we get into that transition and what effect it may have had on the franchise, let's start at the beginning. The first episode of the series is focused on Takao Kanomiya. Wait, they stole that too. Anyways, we follow our titular Hat Boy and company customizing his bay, equipment, and launch technique to beat a bully's modified super heavy bay. Is this customization mostly nonsensical and totally illegal on the real product? Yes! And that's a pattern too. While we start out in some semi-semblance of reality with normal base stadiums you could buy in stores and standard launchers, we quickly get goofy with it. Giant, elaborate stadiums that are just sometimes dioramas of real places, launchers that range from nunchucks, Muay Thai kicks, art supplies, sports equipments, and medieval weapons, plus the addition of the occasional gun, and bays that simply did not or could not exist. Accuracy to the toys was not a focus, and I don't think the show really knew much about the play pattern of the toys to faithfully adapt it to screen. If we hear about a Beyblade's gimmick, it's likely not going to be Draseel's metal balls or Dragoon's rubber flat tip. When the toy gimmicks actually do get brought up, it's very briefly, doesn't actually play into the plot since everything acts like an attack type, and get immediately undermined by the literal gods inside each bay. The gimmicks that do get explained in detail are those of the fake bays owned by the many Punch-Out style stereotypes, since those are the issues that the main characters have to creatively solve. While this started out as grounded as the opponent's bay is really heavy, it quickly escalates to the opponent's bay can heat up the stadium enough to melt your Beyblade. The opponent's bay is coated in wool and slows down other bays, or blatant racism, which is shocking because as I already alluded to, the sole gimmick they could come up for Mongolia's team is sheep, I guess. And all of those aren't even touching the gimmick of the opponent's bay has an angry ghost in it that could kill me. The reason why one guy could control his bay with music isn't because it was possessed, it's just because it could do that. The relation of the bays in the show and the real-life product is pretty incidental. Bays in real life are plastic models that you build and swap parts with to hone its properties in battle. You can't exactly modify your bay outside of the parameters of using parts that exist within the toy line as they come stock. It's not like Tamiya 4-wheel drive, known for its still regulated but more liberal rulings on customization, where you're allowed to lubricate, sand, chop, and tune parts as needed given it falls under the guidelines of the competition class you're entering it under, which was certainly exaggerated but still adapted quasi-faithfully in 1996's TV anime The Vrooming Brothers Let's Go. I only mention this seminal classic for the hobby anime genre because it is A, very good and underrepresented in very specifically the United States anime fandom, and 2, the blueprint for how Bakuten Shoot Beyblades handles its bays for the first half of the series. In the initial chunk of episodes, they spend time tuning bays, mentioning stuff like a 10cm diameter build restriction and other competition parameters, making repairs, and overall treating them like plastic model kits or machinery, to the point that Max's dad sells them in his plastic model shop, but many times they don't go into more details than the bay is stronger now. All commentary on bay customization is very non-specific, shying away from pointing out what new feature of the bay increased its attack or defense capabilities by 120%, something Let's Go didn't have much issue with. They'll explain exactly what material or part they used and why it's beneficial. They have a full episode about manufacturing a lightweight ceramic body for their car. In Beyblade, the best customization scene happens directly after the main team's first international tournament stint as a small montage and character arc for keeping Takau's ego in check, and we don't get anything close to it afterwards. Afterwards is actually exactly when we start shying away from that. Throughout the following tournament in America, we start to focus more and more on the stickers on every bit chip, the Seiju or Sacred Beast. The difference between Jobber and Big Kahuna in this series is a very simple binary. Do you have a Sacred Beast, or will you not appear outside of a cameo for the rest of the series? The Sacred Beasts are very specifically separate from their spinning top hosts. They are plug-and-play, sovereign entities from the Beyblades they inhabit. This creates a three-way relationship between the Blader, their Bay, and their Beast. Unlike its successor series, which make a Bay's spiritual avatar a function inherent to each Bay, the separation of Beast and Bay is so important in Bakuten Shoot that the main characters' Beyblades and Sacred Beasts have different names. At least for our main characters. Seiryu, Genbu, Suzaku, and Byako are the names of the sacred beasts, drawing from the Japanese version of the East Asian mythological concept of the four symbols, of course. And Dragoon, Draseel, Dranzer, and Driger, respectively, are just simply the names for the make and model of the toy housing they're given. A distinction not made in the dub or for any other team, besides those goddamn Europeans. Possibly to reduce the number of names for the audience to memorize. In lore, the sacred beasts have existed long before Beyblade, often being the supernatural might powering some of history's most fearsome weapons, only recently residing in spinning tops due to their ubiquity with today's warriors. This is a point where the series and I completely agree. I do think today's Bladers could take down Spartan forces. While the Spartan warriors were advanced in kissing other men, today's Bladers have a control over gender that could make them weep. Look, I can both handle letting it rip and neo-pronouns. I don't think we can say the same about the Sacred Band of Thebes. Oh yeah, Beyblade. As stakes in the series ramp up, it loses the need for characters who can't wield magical powers, and soon every major opponent has a sacred beast to show off. The partially filler Europe arc is an important transition in the series as it marks the point where the spinning top themselves don't matter as much as the literal kaiju they summon. Arguably, Dragoon's main gimmick in the anime was not its aggressive rubber grip base, but rather its ability to create strong winds with the help of Seiryu. I mean, a lot of situations in a spinning top battle can be solved with the cow remembering, oh yeah, Dragoon, create a tornado. During the Europe arc, while exclusively facing opponents who have their own sacred beasts, the most vital gimmick of Dragoon or any other Beyblade is the ability to summon a mythological creature to maim the opponent's mythological creature. This first becomes apparent with Team Who, a group of guys who casually are just real demons who made a Faustian deal with a higher power to get evil sacred beasts in exchange for their souls because they're angry at the top bladers in Europe for steamrolling them. Their bays, none of which were ever meant to be toys, are just set dressing for their spooky spiritual attacks. Battles against Team Who don't really focus on defeating the bays as much as they do stopping the monster mash. Since they're all conspicuously delicious Halloween cereal mascots, the power of Christ can and does defeat them. Any traditionally Christian holy symbol works. Silver, the cross, Dranzer F, the sacred beasts do the heavy lifting here. Once the Euro team enters the equation in the same arc, the bays leave, only playing into the calculation as vestigial health bars at best. The focus of the plot, the characters, and the concept of the series becomes the sacred beasts from this point on. The actual physical spinning tops have very little to do with the grand scheme of things, especially when it's revealed that the twist main villain's goal is to create the ultimate weapon by synthesizing the ultimate artificial sacred beast that can seal the power of all the other sacred beasts. And when a character's sacred beast is stolen, so is any agency they have in the plot. Their Beyblade is useless on its own, which is kind of a bad message to send when that is the product you are advertising. They aren't selling you this anymore. They're selling you this. I mean, those monsters are popular, so why not sell these monsters? The show, from a mechanical and merchandising perspective, becomes really mixed on its messaging. It wants to sell the fantasy of doing customization and maintenance on your battle toy, without actually having the depth or detail that makes that fantasy work in a satisfying way like Let's and Go. It also wants to sell you the fantasy of commanding your own monster in battle and bonding with it, without having the heartwarming bond and battle mechanics that made its monster collection contemporaries compelling. It comes off like there wasn't enough confidence in the spinning top part of the series that they made an effort to sell it as a creature battler too, and because of the split focus, each part of the series feels unfinished and undercooked in some way or another. So no, Bakuten Shoot Beyblade wasn't really an effective toy advertisement on paper, at least not for the long run. Most of the bays in the series didn't exist, and if they did, their selling points weren't really well explored. There's no nuanced difference between Drasil Shield and Drasil Fortress, or any other similar upgrade. One's just reportedly better than the other in canon because it's the new and improved model. Maybe you were meant to buy more bit chips to customize your bays. I mean, they're just cosmetic, but you can pretend they shoot out monsters. The series just really isn't a good display of the cool toys you could own in real life. And even with all that being said, Bakuten Shoot Beyblade, a house divided against itself, stood anyways.
We might need to take a step back. The series didn't really effectively advertise its products, but maybe it didn't need to in the first place. I mean, clearly not. We're talking about Beyblade right now as the cultural juggernaut, and not the darling in the rough that never became the breakout success that it was meant to be.
These get banned at recess. These get petitions to bring them back with 108 total signatures over a course of 2 years. Maybe this series advertised the brand effectively. He-Man didn't sell you Masters of the Universe toys by advertising the toys themselves. It sold you the idea of some cool guys, and then you could live out that fantasy by buying their toys in stores now. It created an emotional connection to a character, and then made an outlet for that emotional connection through merchandise. Hello Kitty, Care Bears, the concept of boy bands and idol groups, they all did the same exact thing. Your devotion to X can be expressed by buying Y with X's face on it, even if Y is a really poor simulacrum of X. It's literally classical conditioning. You take the positive feelings one has for a character, associate that with an object harkening back to that character, and then, after a while, the feelings one had for that character also get associated with that object. And once you like that object, you'll probably like its sister objects too, since they remind you of the object you like. Let's break down what made Bakuten Shoot Beyblade a satisfying advertisement for the fantasy of being a blader, how it built a connection between you and the let it rip lifestyle. Beyblade traditionally has always done this, even after Bakuten Shoot. Sure, El Drago is a cool-looking left-spin bay, a rarity in Metal Fight Beyblade's lineup of mostly right-spinning tops. But let's not pretend that the number one reason it's remembered fondly is because the salivation-inducing bell to Ryuga's dog food, you poor Pavloved puppy girl. I mean, Burst is essentially built on the principle of, hey, remember this guy? This is him now. Buy our plastic. Upgrading bays has always been a part of the series, but as Burst went on, its gene pool shrank rapidly. More and more often, a new bay would seldom be a new bay at all, but rather a reminder of how cool Vault Alloy, Free De La Hoya, Shu Kurenai, or this freak are. By the end of the series, and by that I mean the literal last 3 seasons, the gimmick became cool reimagining of a legacy Burst bay in a modern system. So the key to success clearly is to make cool characters so people can project their goodwill for them onto whatever piece of plastic they owned. And rewinding the tape back to the turn of the millennium, Bakuten Shoot sets up a pretty good stage for its characters. The series was animated by Studio Madhouse, who also made the pillars on which our society stands on. The style of the show is very unique, translating to Kao Aoki's art wonderfully. The slightly cartoony and exaggerated character designs and visuals are iconic and make the series stand out from its contemporaries, something that it loses once the studio changes to Nippon Animation in Bakuten Shoot Beyblade 2002, a studio that coincidentally also made a Hunter x Hunter TV anime. The soundtrack is also great, the Japanese one at least. I like the vocal themes from the dub and think that the Japanese version could use some of them, don't get me wrong, but the rest of the soundtrack and dialogue can never shut up. Oh my god! The original score has a very big horn-forward sound that also leaves plenty of room for quiet moments to make this melodramatic series about spinning tops actually take a breath and land. You can't be going full cylinders on new metal and puns all the goddamn time, but they're sure gonna try!
Now, kick it!
Listen up, Tyson. The only thing you'll be kicking is yourself. My business
And the
has
Beyblades
life.
themselves are in one massive demolition derby. Tyson felt the breeze on that one.
So, what is the context in which our melodrama is steeped in? The plucky Takao Kinomiya is a normal Beyblade-loving kid who happens to qualify to be a member for the national representative team for Japan in a Beyblade World Championship, the BBA team. Joining him are the friendly Max Mizuhara, cool Ray Kohn, and the very pointy bad boy Kai Hiwatari, plus their Beyblade professor and non-combatant Manabu Kyoju Saien. That one's my friend. The 5 boys go off to explore the entire world, mostly unsupervised, and climb to the top of professional Beyblade, only to discover the secrets of the sacred beasts, which may be the target of a far more sinister plot than their title of Athletes of Love would lead you to think. And that short synopsis is also the entire plot. It's tournament after tournament that really only act as the context for some wacky hijinks and a highlight character's emotional development. We do get a high-stakes plot at the very end of the series, but it kind of falls flat compared to the actual character work being done. It's really hard to care about the world-ending stakes, especially when they're so sudden and at a different scale to everything else in the series. Oh no, they're going to take over the world by using the sacred beasts as a super weapon of mass destruction. Sure, dude, whatever. Have you considered that my friend Kai is feeling really sad right now? With that established, I think it's worthwhile to dive into what makes our main characters tick, what makes them cool, and why the audience is supposed to like them and buy their toys in stores now. Let's start off with our main character, Takao Kinomiya, who's a blading... well, he's not talented enough to be a prodigy, or smart enough to be a savant, or even that experienced enough to be an expert, or that good at all, but he's got potential and the gumption to realize it, and the temper to blow it all anyway. Takao is the Bart Simpson or Sonic the Hedgehog of plastic spinning tops. He's youthful rebellion in the form of a marketable scrunglo. He's got an outfit that just shouts out that he's a free spirit gung-ho on playing with toys. We've got the shorts symbolic of freedom of movement and the freedom of playing outside in the summer sun, and above that he has a stylish red overshirt left casually unbuttoned to reveal an even more casual yellow t-shirt. Every shirt in the series has a really loose collar that just hangs off of the body, and this is just a stylistic choice, but it does make sense for characters who seemingly only have one set of clothes. The fingerless gloves imply that he gets his hands dirty enough to justify them, but he still needs the dexterity regular old fingered gloves are too stuffy and safe to supply. That backwards cap means business, but not formal enough business that would require him to tidy up his hair or even give it a trim. He truly looks like a rambunctious kid who very proudly dressed himself this morning, or a fully grown futch lesbian who just got a really good haul after thrifting. His story starts with him skipping his traditional kendo training to study a new kind of blade that his geezer grandpa doesn't understand. Not yet, at least. He eventually comes to respect that Takao is so devoted to blading and is proud that he found his niche, even if it isn't the family tradition. This is one of the most important parts of the escapism Takao employs as the audience surrogate, having an actually supportive and understanding guardian. If millennials had that, then maybe their main form of entertainment wouldn't be something from their childhood with the addition of craft IPAs. And if Zoomers had that, maybe we wouldn't have the collapse of the United States. Also, as an audience surrogate, Takao needs to be able to learn about and overcome new challenges as they arise, meaning that he has to be good enough to win battles, but green enough to struggle a bit. As identified by Kyoju in a clip show episode, he is the best and worst member of the team. His passion allows him to overcome insurmountable odds, or lose to some random guy off the street. Either he uses his hot head to persevere and win, or to double down on a strategy that will lose him the entire set. His arc is not only about overcoming his brazenness, but his entire concept of competing. I just want to preface this point with this. Takao inherently is a good kid, and he wants to do the right thing. At the Japan qualifiers, he goes out of his way to show a kind gesture to Kai, someone who has not shown him the same courtesy, and the first few episodes are really about how he will step up to the plate for other people who need his help. When push comes to shove, Takao will put his neck on the line for friends and strangers. When that push involves blading, Takao gets caught up with his own competitive nature to both his and his friends' detriment. Whenever winning or his ego is on the line, Takao will focus in on just that, much less the surrounding context that got him there in the first place. Takao, for the most part, seeks to win for his own means, his pride, his progress in the world tournament, or for spite. Throughout the series, he learns that his self-centeredness, fed by his own overconfidence, makes him desperate to win, and his paths to victory short-sighted and undercooked. He's fighting to win, but he's not winning for anything bigger than himself. At least when he's in one of his states of bravado. Heroics notwithstanding. Every arc villain demonstrates why this is self-destructive and will eventually result in defeat. The Chinese team represents isolationism and conservative rejection of new ideas, new and different cultures, and diverging from tradition when it's for the better. The American team represents myopic focus on efficiency, a militaristic view of using science as an excuse to excise passion, love, empathy, and personal accountability from competition, taking the human out of human achievement that makes sport special. The Euro team represents literal individualism, with its members refusing to cooperate in the name of their own glory and ego. And the Russian team, Borg, is the culmination of all the faults of their predecessors, literally giving up their emotions to become military weapons devoid of personality or need for others. After all, they can steal all the power they need for themselves. Time and time again, it is shown that everyone blading for themselves is only stunting their own growth as a blader, a person, and a friend to their peers. This all lays the foundation for Takao's final battle against Yuri, the leader of the Russian team and the pawn of the evil organization Borg. His artificial sacred beast has been pumped full of the stolen power of almost every other beast in the series, and Yuri himself has gone over a drastic procedure to bring out his own power by making himself an emotionless weapon for world domination. Takao has done the exact opposite. He's relied on his friends to train, even some of his biggest rivals who had to teach him the same lesson they learned from him, that the game is about relying on others, not using them as stepping stones. Every battle is not about dominating the other person to prove superiority, but rather to sharpen each other and to come closer as competitors and as comrades. A Bay battle might be one-on-one, but you are still working as part of a team, because one not only should rely on other people to grow, but has to. Yuri's ultimate attack, symbolic of his ideology, isolates the two in a separate dimension inside of an iceberg. Literal, cold-blooded isolation of the self that the cameras can still see into for some reason. Yuri is enraged that Takao is still having fun with the battle and thinking of his friends. So enraged that he creates a giant sun made out of infinite energy with the power of all of the sacred beasts he's stolen. While this is obviously ridiculous and at an unprecedented power scale for the series so far, but we will get there again, Takao's bond with his friends whose beasts were stolen, and the bond with his own beast allow him to dodge the sun's deadly lasers, break out of the isolation iceberg, and return all of the sacred beasts to his rivals turned friends he's met throughout the series, defeating Yuri, Borg, and the myth of isolationist individualism. Does this boil down to the power of friendship? Yes. But why would that be a bad thing? Takao is cool because he's dumb, he makes mistakes, but he can still have fun, befriend his opponents, and grow stronger from the network he's made without compromising on who he is. It might be an oldie, but it's a goodie. Unless if it's Fairy Tail, in which that case I don't want to be friends with any of these sex criminals. While Takao is the standard guns-blazing shonen protagonist, Max Mizuhara is just a really friendly guy. He's just so likable from the moment you see him. He's literally friend-shaped with his goofy unkempt hair, boyish orange overalls, and garish green accent colors. The first thing he does in the series is save a puppy from drowning by blading with Takao, and then invites him to play toys in his dad's super cool model shop. There's literally nothing not to like about this guy. He's great. He just has mommy issues. Max has an American mom and a Japanese dad, and he often slips into using English words to spice up his sentences.
My name is Max. Yoroshiku ne. Max ka. Takao cute, kawaii ne.
This hints at just how often Max is yoinked around or left behind by his mother Judy, who he loves very much. She even gave him his sacred beast Genbu. Well, technically it was his dad that gave him the pendant, it just belonged to his mother. Look, I'm trying to give Judy anything here. So, when his mother acts coldly to him when they meet back up in America, and focuses more on her research and team than her own son, he's understandably heartbroken. But interestingly, he never tries to change who he is to appease her. After all, there's nothing wrong with him. He's a loving son and a caring friend, even to strangers. In the preceding Asia tournament, he offers a team from the Maldives his old bay to replace their own that was a piece of sea trash that washed ashore that they could never afford to upgrade. He's got a heart of gold with endless love. He instead proves that this is what makes him and his friends strong and is a variable that his mom's analytical approach could never calculate for. Judy advises him not to battle in the BB-8 team's match against her own team simply because she thinks he'd lose based on her own research data. Eventually, when seeing her son battle against her own American team in the finals, the emaciated husk of her motherly warmth quietly hopes that Max proves her wrong, which he does, managing a win despite the odds. Judy breaks down and apologizes to her son, which in his infinite mercy, he does accept. He loves his mommy. She then spends the rest of the series trying to make up for her neglect and active abandonment by helping out Max and the BB-8 team however she can. So part of why Max is cool is that he's just like this weird child of divorce power fantasy. Like he manages to make Judy become a real mother again after she essentially took a leave of absence from the family. Surely this resonated with some of the kids in the audience. Even if it didn't, he's just kinda generally pleasant and great to pair up with any other character as a helping hand. The last cool thing he gets to do in the series is airdrop into the Sasuke retrieval battle when things are looking grim, which is incredibly fun, incredibly in character, and incredibly disappointing because he gets bodied in the next episode by some Borg team member and becomes a non-combatant because Genbu is stolen. Unfortunately, even if he's supposed to be the defense rep of the series, he's not often able to defend against being sidelined outside of his focus arc. It's an honor that he shares with Rei. At the end of the day, it's Kai and Takao's world, as those two are the main rivals of the series, which leaves poor friendly Max in the dust in a lot of circumstances. Speaking of the other punching bag, Raycon is here, and from China. You can tell because his gimmick is knowing the martial arts of a secluded clan hidden in the mountains. You know, if there's any country that's known for hawking Chinese stereotypes that are reductive and demonizing, besides America, the country known for passing a Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882 and somehow carrying that hate to today, it's Japan. It's a trend unfortunately persistent in the cultural zeitgeist of the country's history. It's got a Wikipedia page. Racism, for anyone undecided, is bad. I only bring this all up because Rei's backstory is heavily reliant on Orientalist imagery and cliches like an old kung fu movie. Or specifically a martial arts film that just kind of fetishizes the noble mystics of the exotic East, while not actually acknowledging those people as their own human entities with their own country, culture, and history. Rei is rep for Chinese people in the same way that Apache Chief is rep for indigenous peoples. He's not, just thought it was of note because it's very ingrained in his admittedly visually striking design. That's not me giving props. He's a martial arts hero dressed in a bold Gundam-adjacent color palette and a gi he got from Spirit Halloween labeled Chinese Kung Fu Champion with a picture of a white guy wearing it. Dog literally has the yin-yang symbol on his forehead. It's a bit on the nose. He's very cat-like with his fangs, whisker lines, eyes, and agility, befitting of his sacred beast Byakko, the symbol of his heritage. I really hope I channeled Peggy Hill with that one. The White Tiger Spirit was originally passed down in his sheltered clan, being used in weapons similar to Bei's. Eventually, Rei earned the right to use Byakko over his friend and rival Lai, and once Rei left the village to travel the world, this drove a wedge between him and his former friends. Lai's sister Mao felt betrayed by Rei's leave, feeling like she meant nothing to the friend who taught her how to Beyblade. Lai himself was doubly scorned, not only losing his life goal to inherit Byakko, but losing it to a friend who abandoned him and his clan's holy traditions. In all honesty, Rei only left to learn more about the world he felt closed off from, isolated in the mountains, thinking his culture would stagnate without the influence of the amazing and diverse peoples of the world. This makes Rei's arc anti-fundamentalist and anti-nationalist, but heavily reliant on depicting his clan as a stock Orientalist caricature of a mysterious other who has somehow persisted with their ancient and esoteric ways, but would stand to learn something from the modern man. Still, Rei has one of the more emotionally resonant arcs because of his personal stake and guilt for what he did. The entire Asia tournament, his connection to the China team causes grief for both him and the BBA team. He loses faith in himself and Byakko leaves him. Rei has to regain his belief in himself and his ties to his heritage, summoning back Byakko and giving him the convictions to mend his connections with Mao and Lai through his tournament battles. He's willing to fight for the connections he has, but also confident enough to stand by the decisions he's made. It's great, and he's so cool if you ignore the Orientalist undertones and the fact that Rei J also made a Raycon that exploits Chinese people. But please don't ignore it, making a Chinese catboy that relies entirely on stereotypes is literally insane. The peak of Rei outside of his character arc is his match in the World Finals, which is also one of the best matches of the entire series. It's so melodramatic in the way that all the best battles of the entire franchise are. Rei's opponent from Team Borg slices him up apart with cutting wins, literally going for blood with no evidence to convict him. Rei may be battling a babe, but his opponent is battling him. His teammates and friends all ask him to give up as he falls into critical condition, but he fights on. If he gives up on the battle, he gives up on everyone who had their sacred beast stolen and the safety of the world as a whole. He manages to eke out a win, barely hanging on, and collapses, having to be carted out on a stretcher for his injuries. Also not the last time that happens in Beyblade. It's so dumb, but it's so cool! Like, we're so far removed from spinning top battles now, but this just goes so hard! There's only one member of the team cooler than Rei, and he doesn't even have to draw on archetypes that flatten cultures into an exotic and alluring other. Kai Hiwatari, the Ryuga of millennials. This guy makes people who own Ben Fold CDs go nuts. Even though he's purportedly based on that guy who people in their late 30s to early 40s thought was really funny to name stuff like Dick Butt, Kai trends noticeably edgier than his progenitor. Whereas the rest of the BBA team's designs were plausible or somewhat based in reality, this guy just straight up doesn't exist and it's rad. He's got two-toned hair with this gray tuft of party at the front and slicked back, darker business at the back. And that party's not fun, it's a mosh pit. His angular eyes and brows give him the look of perpetual scowling, even when he's smiling. There's these weird blue triangle tattoos on his face that never really get addressed, but draw you into his angry, cool face that, like everything else, don't make sense, but just work. Of course, you've got to add the Kamen Rider-esque ninja scarf that loners usually have, and then the strange, shiny black skin-tight top with gold rivets and red trim on it. It's framed by God's highest-waisted jeans and unnecessarily cool belt buckle. The pants are also awesome, with their cargo pockets and sharp, flared shapes. Not as awesome as whatever these clawed wrist adornments are that somehow are more the vibe fingerless gloves are meant to give off than fingerless gloves actually manage to give off. Like, these things are less than fingerless. They only connect to one finger. This is insane. And what are those? This is like Knuckles' shoe Legos, except if they had a butterfly knife and were nursing a pack of ciggies. Every part of Kai's design is purely ornamental, no practical use except to be the most radical thing a 10-year-old could ever imagine. And he lives up to the expectation. The first thing he does is jump down 20 feet from the top of a riverbank, slap a dude through the air, and destroy Takau's Beyblade with little to no effort. This kid is a gangster! Literally, he leads the local shell killer Beyblade gang, notable for stealing bays, being ruthless, and having this kid who I imagine did a lot of things to a lot of people's genders. Kai even facilitates the first Beyblade torture scene, a classic staple of the series that continues even in spin-offs.
You people aren't well!
He joins the BBA team mostly on the basis to find strong, sacred beasts across the world at the behest of his menacing grandfather, Soichiro. In the broad strokes, he's barely a part of the team at first, much less the captain the dub arbitrarily appoints him as. Kai only battles when absolutely necessary, partly because he's too aloof to care, and partly because he's literally an instant win button. He's in, he's done, he's out in any battle he chooses to take part of. He's not here for a long time or a good time. I'd say in his eyes, he's doing time. Kai acts abrasive to his other team members, but this quickly turns into tough love advice for whenever they're jeopardizing their own well-being or happiness. He helps them out more and more until he's actually invested in the team more than his own secret mission. This comes to a head in Russia, the final tournament of the series, when they meet Vladimir Volkov, evil leader of the evil organization Borg in their evil abbey where they raise evil children into heartless Beyblade mercenaries with no qualms of killing if they really had to do it. He's like the original Daidoji in the way that he is also skilled at finding evil messed up children and messing them up even more, and is also voiced by Takehito Koyasu, Japanese voice of Dio. To entice Kai to join the dark side, Volkov leads him to a bay locked in chains that reawakens Kai's repressed memories of being raised in the abbey. With this revelation, Kai backslides to his former ways of trying to become stronger by any means necessary, and takes the forbidden bay that he forgot he desired, Black Dronzer. This ill masterwork of design holds within it the power of Black Suzaku, a sacred beast who can permanently absorb the power of other beasts. An insidious conjuration that was forged by the dark alchemical magics of Rasputin? No, we don't get to skip past that. The real Grigori Rasputin. Like the rah-rah one that cucked all those guys. That one. Sure, man. You know, it takes something really special to top Kai bullet hell dodging through Beyblade Hall of Guns, TM, which happened in the same episode! Yeah, now that Kai has unlocked his Mangekyo, he jumps ship to Borg and steals all of the beasts from the American and Chinese teams. This prompts Takao and company to literally have a come to Jesus with him where they use Dranzer Prime to show him how sad he's made Suzaku. Only by saving Kai from drowning to death in freezing water are they able to make him realize that, yeah, maybe him accepting help from others is much less of a weakness than it is the beautiful reality of being human. Kai joins back up and is ready to show Borg some payback in the finals. Well, he would have if he didn't lose, a twist for our winner boy who wins a lot. Not only is this a good dramatic twist, it's a really good way to cap off Kai's character arc. During the match, his grandfather, the real brains behind Borg, offers him the power of Black Suzaku once again in the form of a new and improved bit chip that he could just pop into his Dranzer. His refusal to use this power costs him the game and leaves Suzaku open to being stolen, but cements his independence from his past in his bond with his team, who he can now call his friends. He didn't lose because he was weak, he lost because he refused to play their game, using a weapon like Borg's artificial sacred beasts that stole power that wasn't their own. It was Kai Hiwatari and Suzaku who fought and lost, not anyone else's power. He fought with his own agency and his own friends. Kai can trust his allies to close up the set. The victory he earned was personal. He cut the strings that kept him his grandfather's puppet, and he didn't dishonor the game he holds dear. Before the team's final battle, he goes on to help Takao with his training. What follows is one of Bakuten Shoot's most compelling showdowns, using an actual spinning top-focused battle with the show's main theme blaring as an insert theme, showing that he understands it takes a village to better oneself, and that he's a part of a village that betters others. And with all that in mind, I can truly say, without a shadow of a doubt, Kai really isn't all that deep or complex of a character. He's a standard lone wolf turned ally who just happens to have a decent arc and looks really cool doing it. His character development in his Spotlight arc is more interesting than the frame of it. The reveal that his grandfather has actually been funding the creation of the ultimate sacred beast to use as a weapon to conquer the world. An effort immediately quashed by his tween getting beaten up by a tween who likes to play and draw, whose boss, Mr. Monopoly Man, immediately approaches him and reveals that not only has he been under suspicion of his plan for a long time, but by executing it on a live broadcast event has written receipts damning enough to do him in. Dudeski, you were the twist villain of a series that really didn't need a twist villain, or a villain at all. What did you expect to happen? Regardless, Kai remains as one of the most culturally enduring characters in the series, and still a profoundly popular one from the moment of his introduction. He's edgy, precision-crafted, over-the-top anime cool. Every gif that exists of this character is just a common ancestor of Sigma male content. For a character whose mythological standing boils down to being a stoic badass who can handle any situation by himself, I think it's funny that Kai's character arc is about proving that there is no such thing as being a stoic badass who can handle any situation by themselves. Really, besides the direct cool factor of all of its characters, the lasting appeal that sold Beyblade as a brand, and still does to this day, is the message that any worthwhile effort in the world, including playing a fun game, is done together, in the company of friends and rivals. Beyblade has been acknowledged as a communication toy by Takara Tomy many times, which is exemplified by its ability to draw people together. Every month, you can see videos of normal people, even grown adults, chanting around a Beyblade arena. The entirely fan-made, non-profit World Beyblade organization and others like it have been running tournaments around the world for years. Beyblade, unlike a good handful of tabletop games, can only be run in person and face-to-face. To be a fan of Beyblade, you must be willing to create bonds with other people. The anime may have led people to buy the toys because of its cool characters, but what kept people coming back is the endearing, well-crafted toy at its core and the sentiment of camaraderie around it. It's a battling top. We've been doing them since time immemorial because we love spinning things and things that hit each other. Beyblade brought battling tops back into the mainstream of culture by creating its own culture around them, and the anime's portrayal of melodramatic tournaments conquered by the triumph of friendship defined that culture for a generation of viewers. If you want to watch an oldie but a bestie beloved worldwide that focuses on competing with toys, that dives into kids' relationships with plastic, and the intense, brain-racking thought process that goes into customizing that plastic, I highly recommend Bakuten Kyodai Let's and Go. However, if you want a series that showcases how the bond between a child and their ethereal monster, as well as their peers, pushes them to grow as people, watch Digimon Adventure. But if you want a Beyblade series that will make you fall in love with seeing the game for the sport that it is, that's Beyblade Burst and Burst God, but if that's too kiddie for you, Beyblade X is a slightly darker take on that. If you want to watch the show that would cement the direction Hobby Annie and Kodomo would take as a whole in the new millennia, animated by Studio Madhouse of all people, Bakuten Shoot is certainly one of the heavy hitters. It's a good show, but one that tries to do a lot. If you like it for only a few elements, you'll likely enjoy other shows more. Any given element of the series could stand to be developed further. Critically, I'd call it a 7 out of 10. It's predictable structure-wise, it doesn't showcase the toy it's advertising all that well, and it shows its age at times. But it has a lasting charm that has the stamina to still shine even today. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, in conclusion, this guy, best character design in the whole series bar none. Fight me. Along the same note, Kyoju is the best member of BB-8 team. There's not a moment where he's on screen where I think, this sucks or this could be better. Also awesome, in the dub, voiced by a trans woman. That trans woman? House of Decline. Speaking of the dub, the integration of dub original character Dizzy, the talking bit beast computer, diminishes his role and halts the pacing of any scene she's in. I love you, girly, but they set you up to fail. As they did every female character in the series, because none of their bays ever got made. I want Emily's first Trigator, I want her tennis racket launcher, and God forbid they release Mao's pink Beyblade to emasculate the incredibly manly Beyblade audience. Them as characters, I like them, but unfortunately used to highlight a male character. Emily is used to highlight Max. Mao is used to highlight Ray. They don't serve any other purpose outside of this, truly. I really wish we got more out of Mao in this series. She has a hair bow that looks like cat ears, without drawing them as cat ears. That's revolutionary. Apropos of nothing, did the Galapagos team actually get their bays from Magic Animals? Is that the final verdict here? I thought they were like goofy haha making it up, before the core cast of A Spirit Halloween showed up with real magical powers they got from Satan. Also, there's an in-universe film adaptation of Les Mis, except Javert is a vampire and has a werewolf minion. This is plot relevant because, again, they defeat the Vampire Bay by forming a cross with their own bays and project Byakko through a coin so he's made out of silver and can kill a werewolf, a plan which they formed by watching this movie. Twilight Les Mis is integral to the resolution of an entire arc in the same way that Ichigo unlocking his Bankai is. That being said, the tortoise giving birth to a Beyblade is something I'm ready, willing to accept now. Did Charles Darwin witness immaculate Beyblade birth during his studies in the Galapagos? Is that canon? You gotta tell me, man. I gotta know.
Okay, that's it. I'm done. We're finished here. We're through. That's it. That's the wrap. Okay, one more thing. Takao, why would you ask this?